There are many hardships people born in Mexico and grow up in Mexico go through trying to find work or working in urban areas of Mexico. Many of these people work in farmland, suffering through the terrible work conditions just to provide for their families or themselves. There are limited opportunities in Mexico to find jobs, to get help for physical or mental health, and finding better opportunities for their children. Some of these limitations have caused them to immigrate to the United States illegally. In 2017, about 25% of the United States population has come into the country illegally. They're willing to take the risk of going to federal jail or even death to come to the United States. There are many dangers of living in impoverished or urban areas of Mexico. Drinking high polluted water can lead to waterborne diseases that include giardiasis, hepatitis E, typhoid fever, and many other diseases. Many of the homes these people live in do not include air conditioning, and the average weather is about 90 degrees. These homes have multiple people sharing a couple rooms in a home, with limited resources such as no running water or working toilets. There are many people who work on farms in the hot weather of Mexico in terrible conditions. Some people are withheld wages to prevent them from leaving the camp. They live in terrible living conditions such as sleeping on scraps of cardboard on the concrete ground in terrible sanitary areas. There are people bathing in irrigation canals because the camp showers have no water that day. These farms are involved with political ecology, which is human groups struggle with one another for control of local material environmental resources. The reason for this is because many American companies own these farms in Mexico, so they can pay the people working cheaper and do not have to follow the same regulations as they do in America, which causes the workers to be treated unfairly. The North American Free Trade Agreement is a free trade agreement for gross domestic products between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Many of these farm workers in Mexico work in these American-owned farms. This has forced many local farmers to go out of business and people to work in the American-owned farms. These farms are in worse conditions with lower income to provide for their families. There are pros and cons of having NAFTA according to the Balance website. This is part of neoliberalism, which is a global economic restructuring that encourages free trade, reduced tariffs, and privatization in the pursuit of economic prosperity. With the limited amount of work in Mexico, many people do not have a choice but to work in terrible conditions, which has led to many health problems for them. About 40% of farm workers are depressed, and 30% express anxiety from the isolation, limited social support, separation from family members, job, financial stress, and poor housing and unhealthy working conditions. Migrant workers have increased the risk of about 6 times more likely to get tuberculosis, respiratory problems, and many more from the conditions they work in. Many of the workers have little to no insurance, so many go through this suffering without getting treated and working through it, causing other people to spread these diseases around the camps. These risks have caused some people to have to cross the United States border illegally to get help for their health or to get a job that they can physically work. Immigration is those who leave their country with no expectation of ever returning. This is a push factor which includes poverty, violent conflict, political uncertainties, and others that push individuals to migrate from their home countries. There are limited job opportunities for people living in Mexico, so many come to the United States to find a way to provide for their families. Many parents are trying to get better educational opportunities for their children so their children can have better job opportunities than they did. There are high homicide rates in Mexico due to the weak law enforcement, gang-related murders, drug cartels, and many other reasons for violence. The weather in Mexico and Arizona can reach up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit and has a low amount of humidity, which causes it to be dry. This makes it difficult for people on their journey to cross over the border and causes many dehydration symptoms. Some of the worst symptoms of severe dehydration is vomiting, diarrhea, fever, and excessive sweating, which can lead to heat injury, urinary and kidney problems, seizures, and low blood volume shock. When coming into the United States, it is difficult for someone who is undocumented to get a job. This shows the percentage of job industries most undocumented immigrants work in the United States, which is limited because of their education level and not having citizenship. Many of these low-income jobs are getting people hurt because the only job they're qualified for are the dangerous ones. To get a license, it is difficult because people who do not speak English must get a translator and must be literate to pass the written exam. Many people decide to take the bus or walk, but many of these options do not take them directly to their jobs or destinations they need to go. So many must walk extra miles before and after their long days at work. This process can take up to 7 years to become a citizen, which is a long process. So is America really the land of the free?